In 1893, a British diplomat took out his pen and drew a line across the rugged Afghan mountains. He thought he was protecting an empire. Instead, he carved a wound that still bleeds today. This is the story of the Durand Line, a border that divided more than land. The British feared Russia's growing power in Central Asia. They needed a barrier, a buffer between their prized colony, India, and the Russian Empire. Afghanistan stood in between, caught in the middle of the great game. And so, London sent Sir Mortimer Durand to fix the problem with ink and diplomacy. Durand met Afghanistan's Amir Abdul Rahman Khan in Kabul. The meeting was short, formal and full of pressure. By signing the agreement, the Amir secured British recognition of his rule, but he also surrendered his people's unity without realizing what it meant for the future. The Durand Line stretched 2,640 kilometers from Chitra's icy peaks to Balochistan's deserts. On paper, it separated Afghanistan from British India. In reality, it cut through valleys, homes and tribes that had existed for centuries. Half became Afghan, half became British subjects. None were ever consulted. To the British, the new border was law. To the tribes, it was betrayal. Pashtuns, who once shared blood and language, were now labeled as foreigners. Rebellions erupted, raids continued, and the empire called it the unruly frontier. The British built forts, roads, and outposts to secure their creation, but control never came easy. Every village on the frontier carried the same message: no foreign line can divide the Pashtun heart. In 1947, the British left the subcontinent behind. India was born, Pakistan was created, and with that the Durand Line became Pakistan's border with Afghanistan. But Kabul never accepted it. 2 years later, in 1949, the Afghan parliament officially rejected the Durand Agreement. They called it expired, unjust, and colonial. Since then, no Afghan government has ever formally recognized it. A border drawn in 1893 was now a symbol of defiance. During the Cold War, both nations fell into different camps. Afghanistan leaned toward the Soviets, while Pakistan became America's ally. But the Durand Line always remained in the background, a frozen line of distrust beneath superpower politics. The colonial boundary has turned into a front line once more. In October 2025, fierce clashes erupted between Afghan and Pakistani forces after Pakistan accused Kabul of sheltering militants. Meanwhile, Taliban officials deepened ties with India, a move Islamabad read as a warning that new alliances were forming right across its border. Inside Kabul, the reopening of India's embassy became more than a diplomatic gesture. Pakistani analysts claim the mission also serves as a base for RAW, India's intelligence wing, to shape Afghanistan's new direction. For Islamabad, this presence near the Durand Line signals more than politics. It feels like a strategic siege disguised as friendship. The Taliban's outreach to India has redrawn the regional map, with RAW's growing footprint in Kabul and the Durand Line burning once again. Pakistan sees itself trapped between old history and new geopolitics. What Sir Durand once drew to divide empires now divides trust, turning every mile of that border into a test of survival and influence. When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in 1979, millions of refugees crossed into Pakistan. Tribes ignored the border just as their ancestors did. Decades later, the same mountains still echo with conflict, but the enemy keeps changing names. Today, the Durand Line is marked by fences, checkpoints, and drones. It divides people who still share culture, language, and family ties. Pakistan calls it a legal international boundary. Afghanistan calls it a colonial scar. For ordinary people, the Durand Line isn't about politics. It's about survival. A mother in Coast still visits her sister in Quetta through hidden paths. Smugglers, traders, and travelers cross under the eyes of soldiers. To them, the border is invisible, but the fear is not. More than a century later, the same question remains. Can a line drawn by empire ever define nations that never believed in it? The world sees it as a border. The people who live there see it as a wound. The Durand Line was meant to bring peace, but it brought generations of conflict. It has outlived empires, wars, and treaties, and even today it shapes the destiny of millions. Because history never disappears, it just hides behind the lines we choose to ignore.